The grand chamber of Zurith Prime was a polished cathedral of stone and starlight. The walls shimmered like frozen nebulae carved from crystal mined in the forgotten belt of Neros. Alien ambassadors filled the rose-scaled diplomats from the Vulca swamps, feathered thinkers from the Uri spires, and many more who stood like proud sculptures in silence. Each breath inside that room felt sacred, except for one voice that pierced it with sharp arrogance. "Move aside, runt," snapped Lord Karzak of the Rosari Empire, his golden armor humming with power. His voice echoed, cutting the silence. "Like a blade. This is no place for the weak." His eyes, slit like a predator's, locked on a small alien girl standing at the end of the marble dais. Her skin was a pale violet, soft and glowing like dawn through fog. She wore no armor, no royal crest. Just a simple robe and a translator bead. Her name was Tila, and she had come with trembling hope to speak for her people, the forgotten race of Solari, who had lost their home when the ice sun shattered. Tila didn't respond. Her lips moved slightly, as if searching for the right words, but nothing came. Her hands shook behind her back. The room waited, then chuckled, quiet at first, then growing. Karzak stepped forward, his boots striking the floor with the confidence of someone used to power, someone who had never known fear. And then the human stood out at the far side of the chamber. Near the edge of the inner circle, he rose without a word. His name was Jonah Reed. He wore no glowing armor, no floating banners of allegiance. Just a dark coat, dusty boots, and a single emblem on his chest, an old earth symbol, half faded, showing a lion curled around a star. He didn't speak at first. He only looked at Tila, then at Karzak. The way he moved made something inside the room change. The laughter stopped. The air itself seemed to pause. Jonah walked forward slowly, his boots softer than the Rosari's. Yet each step echoed louder. Tila looked up at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You're not here for her," Karzak sneered, curling his lip. "You're a mercenary, a scavenger from a broken world. Why do you rise?" Jonah tilted, his head slightly. He spoke in a calm, quiet tone like someone telling a child a bedtime story. "I rise," he said, "because the measure of strength isn't found in who yells loudest. But who stands up when no one else does." For a moment, silence returned. Deeper this time. It wasn't just the silence of awe. It was the silence of fear. Not of Jonah's power, they couldn't see any weapons, but of something else, something they couldn't name. His presence felt heavier than it should, older, as if the chamber now held a memory long buried. Kar single quote Zek laughed, but it felt forced. "You think she deserves a voice in the circle?" Jonah's eyes didn't move from the Rosari's. "She doesn't just deserve a voice. She is the voice. And you, Lord of Armor and Fear, are the echo." The words hit harder than plasma fire. Murmurs spread like sparks across dry leaves. Some aliens turned toward Tila again, but now their gazes were different, less amused, more uncertain. Tila single quotes as fingers clenched tighter. Her breath steadied. She felt something beneath her skin like warmth where there was once only frost. Jonah hadn't given her strength. He had reminded her it had always been there. Karzak stepped forward, armor humming dangerously now. "You insult me before the circle?" Jonah nodded once. "I don't speak insults, just truth. But if that's too heavy for your throne, maybe it was built for someone smaller than her." A flicker of blue light flared in Karzak's armor. The crowd braced for confrontation, but Jonah didn't move. He didn't draw a weapon. His stillness was his warning. Something passed between them, some unspoken recognition. And for the first time, Karzak took a step back. The chamber changed again, not just in tone, in gravity, as if the story of this moment would echo through the stars. Someone whispered, "He's one of them." Another replied, "From the Earth Wars, the ones who didn't break." But most of them didn't speak. They only watched. As the human stood beside the small alien girl saying nothing more, doing nothing dramatic yet completely silencing a room full of power dot, and somewhere deep inside the ancient walls, old tech hummed for the first time in centuries, recognizing something it had not seen in a long, long time. The meeting ended early that day, not with a gavel, not with ceremony, but with silence. Many who sat in the great chamber of Zurith Prime left without saying a word. Not because the topic had been finished, but because something far more important had begun, and none of them could yet explain what Tila walked beside Jonah through the outer corridors of the hall, her small hands trembling, not from fear now, but from something she didn't know how to name, hope maybe, or the pressure of carrying more than just her own voice. She looked up at him, the quiet human who had stood not just for her, but for what was right, even when no one else dared. Why did you do that? Her voice was soft, nearly lost in the hum of the walls. Jonah didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned the halls, always alert. Finally he said, "Because no one else did." Tila frowned. "You don't know me. My people are forgotten. Not worth saving to most." "Not to me," Jonah said simply. They stopped at a viewing window. Outside, space stretched endlessly. Stars like dust, ships like drifting bones, and between it all, the quiet hum of civilizations too tired to care about the small or the broken. "Earth used to be like that," Jonah said, not looking at her. "Torn, hungry, ignored. We were the ones mocked for being backward, chaotic, slow to evolve, and then one day, we weren't." Tila turned to him. "What changed?" He paused. His fingers tapped against the metal rail. "We remembered who we were," he said, "and we stopped asking permission to care." Before Tila could ask what that meant, they were interrupted. A tall alien in crimson robes approached. He had deep silver lines across his skin, eyes glowing like old lanterns. He bowed slightly to Tila, then looked at Jonah. "You walk like the forgotten storm." The alien said in a voice filled with memory, "Is it true what they say?" Jonah didn't blink. "What do they say?" "That you are human. True human. From the last Earth fleet." Jonah didn't answer. Which, in its own way, was answer enough. The alien bowed again and left, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Tila looked confused. "What was that about? Why do they speak of you like a legend?" Jonah sighed and leaned on the rail. "Because to them we are, but only because they don't remember the truth." He looked at her now, really looked, his eyes not hard, not cold, but tired and deep. "Tila, the galaxy forgot something important. It forgot what real strength is, not power, not weapons, but standing for someone smaller than you, fighting not because you want to win, but because someone needs you to lose for them." Her chest ached at his words, not with pain, but with the weight of understanding. "My people need help," she whispered. "We lost our son. Our ships are old. We're spread across mining colonies with no say, no protection. I just wanted someone to hear us." Jonah nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure they do." Just then, a voice came through the wall speakers. "Ambassador Tila of Salori and Jonah Reed of Earth, please report to Council Chamber 2. Immediately, Tila blinked. "They're calling us back?" Jonah's expression darkened slightly. "Not all silence is peace. Come on." They walked quickly, footsteps echoing side by side. As they turned the final corridor, two things happened at once. First, the lights flickered, just for a second, but enough to make Jonah tense. And second, an old symbol lit up on the wall outside. The chamber door. It was faint, half erased, almost forgotten. But Jonah saw it, a single glowing mark. The symbol of the Terran resolve, a force knot, Used in over a century. Tila didn't recognize it, but Jonah did. And his breath caught. What? Is it? She asked. Jonah stared at it, unmoving. Someone just sent a message, he said. What kind of message? Tila asked, voice tightening. A warning, Jonah said. Or a welcome, maybe both. As the chamber doors slid open, the light from inside spilled out, casting long shadows behind them. And deep in the station's control center, unseen by most, a file that had been locked for 100 years began to decrypt. And the words at the top read, Protocol, Guardian Class Active. The chamber was smaller than the Grand Hall, but colder. Tighter. Its walls were lined with silent watchers, not people, but machines. Glowing spheres hovered near the ceiling, tracking every move, recording every breath. Tila stepped in first, uncertain, her hands folded in front of her. Jonah followed slower, eyes scanning the room with trained instinct. 5 figures sat around a curved table. None of them smiled. Their faces were masks of power, a mix of old species that had ruled for too long and listened too little. Among them sat a Velani elder with skin like folded stone, a Threx diplomat with 12 blinking eyes, and a gray-skinned chancellor from the Galderan Republic who tapped his metal fingers like a ticking clock. Ambassador Tila, the chancellor, began, voice dry and brittle. You've disrupted proceedings with unsanctioned presence. Your species holds no seat on the Interstellar Council. Tila bowed her head. I wasn't trying to disrupt. And you, the chancellor turned to Jonah, you intervened in official diplomatic discourse without clearance. Your name does not appear on any approved human registry. How do you explain this? Jonah didn't answer. He walked to the edge of the table and placed a small object on it. A black square, no larger than a credit chip. It blinked once, then glowed a deep red dot. The Threx diplomat recoiled slightly. That's Terran-grade authority tech. That hasn't been used in centuries. Since the galactic fires, murmured the Velani elder, almost reverently. I thought those codes were erased. Jonah finally spoke, his voice calm and firm. Not erased. Just sleeping. The red glow pulsed, and a voice not Jonah's filled the room. Old, crackling, but clear. Code. Earth Fleet Legacy. Jonah Reed. Designation. Guardian Operative. Authority level. Unlimited per the Unity Treaty, Clause 9. The room froze. Tila blinked. What? What does that mean? Jonah looked at her. It means I'm not just here for you. I'm here because of you. The council members leaned back, uncomfortable. Not afraid, but wary. Old power recognized older threats. The chancellor's fingers stopped tapping. Why reveal this now? Jonah tilted his head. Because I saw what you almost let happen. A child of a dying world mocked in front of your council while you stayed. Silent. I waited. I hoped someone would speak. None of you did. The Velani elder's voice was slow and sad. Earth's guardians were believed extinct. Why return now? Jonah's answer was quiet. Because the galaxy has forgotten how to protect its smallest voices, and someone has to remember. Tila stared at him, heart pounding. Not from fear, but from the weight of hope. The chancellor leaned forward. Do you realize what your presence risks? Reigniting old fears? Reminding entire sectors of wars buried in dust? Jonah nodded. Yes. But pretending things are fine while people like Tila vanish in the shadows. Is worse. The Threx diplomat buzzed with unease. You humans always did believe in dramatic moments. Jonah smirked slightly. We just believe in not staying quiet when it matters. There was a silence after that, deep, not empty. The kind of silence before storms. Then the Velani elder turned to Tila. Speak now, child, not as a guest, but as one whose protector has reminded us of our oldest promise. Tila's throat tightened. She stepped forward, her voice unsure at first but clearer with each word. My people need relocation. Our moons are dying. Our children live in heat shelters and tunnels. We ask not for pity, only for the right to survive with dignity. Her words lingered. Then Jonah placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. And we're not asking. We're staying until it's done. One of the silent watchers above blinked faster. Something had changed. Something unseen, maybe unstoppable. Far above the council station, in orbit, an old human vessel powered up for the first time in 100 years. Not sleek, not modern, but strong, reliable. Its name pulsed through old cum lines. HSS Valor bound. A ghost ship, and it had just come home. In the deep dark of orbit, above the spinning jewel of Zurith Prime, the HSS Valorbound opened its eyes. No crew moved inside its halls. No orders had been spoken. Yet its lights flickered on, systems hummed, and ancient Terran code streamed. Across forgotten panels. It had not been called. It had remembered. Jonah stood at the edge of the docking bay, eyes fixed on the starry void. Behind him, Tila watched silently. The glass before them shimmered with the glow of the awakening ship. To her, it looked like a ghost rising from the ashes of history. To Jonah, it looked like something he never thought he'd see again. That's your ship? She asked. Jonah nodded, his voice low. It's one of ours, from the old line. They were meant to go dark forever unless someone remembered how to ask. Tila frowned. How did it know? It listens to signals the galaxy forgot, Jonah said. And it still remembers what we fought for. Behind them, alarms flickered quietly, not full red alerts, just amber lights. Confused murmurs spread through the station. The reactivation of a human Guardian-class warship wasn't just unexpected, it was impossible. The Council scrambled. Encrypted messages flew through secret lines. Diplomats panicked in whispered voices. They knew what the Valorbound meant. It meant that Earth was no longer sleeping. Inside the ship, robotic systems began assembling. Weapons did not charge. No shields were raised. But every corridor lit up, and one by one, its silent halls began to sing. Tila stood beside Jonah, struggling to understand. Why does this scare them so much? Why are they whispering your name like it's a threat? Jonah turned slowly. Because when Earth went silent, the galaxy thought it was because we were finished. But it wasn't silence of defeat. It was silence of watching. Watching what? She asked. Who would rise? Who would fall? Who would forget the weak? Who would learn from the past? And who would repeat it? Tila felt something tighten in her chest. Not fear. Responsibility. They left the bay and moved through the halls of the station, now tense with energy. Guards passed them, pretending not to stare. Diplomats gave curt nods, hiding their unease. Jonah led Tila to a forgotten room behind. A sealed council chamber, an old storage wing once used by human envoys. Now covered in dust and shadows. Inside, he reached beneath a panel and pulled out a hidden case. The box opened with a soft hiss, revealing an old device, small, metallic. Worn by time. Tila looked at it confused. What is that? A pulse emitter, Jonah replied. Earth tech. One of the first things we designed after the Unity Treaty. It broadcasts not war signals, but something stronger. He clicked it on. The soft hum that followed didn't sound like anything dangerous, just a warm, pulsing sound. Almost like a heartbeat. What does it do? Tila asked. It calls the old watchers, Jonah whispered. Those who still believe in the human code, in standing up, even when the cost is high. Suddenly, the station lights flickered again. But this time, a soft tone echoed through the halls. Deep, resonant. Recognized. Somewhere across the station, old files unlocked. One by one, terminals began showing a symbol, the Terran star wrapped in 7 circles. Beneath it, one word appeared in every known language. Active. Tila's breath caught. You're starting something, aren't you? Jonah's eyes met hers. No, I'm reminding them. On the far side of the galaxy, in distant systems where old Earth tech lay buried or forgotten, dormant cores lit up. Machines turned on. Long quiet sensors scanned the stars. And messages began transmitting between outposts not heard from in generations. Galaxy didn't realize what it had done by mocking a small girl from a dying world in front of a human guardian, but it would. And deep inside Tila, something had changed. The fear wasn't gone. But now there was fire behind it. Not all strength is loud. Not all warriors hold swords. She looked at Jonah, finally understanding. He hadn't come to fight a war. He had come to end one before it could begin. For 3 days the council said nothing. No formal meetings. No public messages. No rulings or responses. They didn't even acknowledge that the HSS Valorbound was hovering silently above their heads, fully awake, fully watching. But across the chaos, stars. Others noticed. The mining colonies where Tila's people lived began receiving encrypted messages, ones they hadn't seen in years. Old human drones began arriving quietly, carrying food packs, water filters, and atmospheric shields, marked only with the faded symbol of Earth. No fanfare. No speeches. Just help. On the 4th day, Tila stood again in the grand chamber. Not trembling now, not alone. This time, she wore the diplomatic robe of her people with pride. Her voice was steady. Her hands no longer hid behind her. Back. We do not demand favors, she said to the silent council. We only ask for our right to be seen, to live with dignity, to have a voice in the stars. There was no mockery this time. No one laughed, but they didn't agree either. Not. Yet. So Jonah stepped forward once more. Not to speak, but to act. He placed a device on the center podium. It blinked once, then projected a hologram into the air, an image of a Solari child sleeping on a mining floor, wrapped in torn thermal blankets beside a broken air vent. The room went still. One by one, more images appeared. A mother trying to patch a radiation leak with her bare hands. A group of children watching their son collapse on a grainy screen. Families crowding into caves to escape rising heat levels. The visuals didn't accuse. They showed. Til a single quotes S voice shook now, not from fear, but emotion. We never asked to be pitied. We asked to be remembered. Jonah walked to stand beside her again. The human and the small alien girl, together at the center of a room built for empires. They'll call this political, Jonah said softly. They'll say we're emotional, weak, that survival is not a council matter. He paused, but they forget that the moment you stop caring for the smallest life, the moment you stop standing up for the one who's hurting, that's when your empire dies. Not with war, with silence. A long silence followed, but this time it didn't last. The Velanai elder stood, slowly. His voice was like stone cracking. There was a time, he said, when we built this council to protect those without power. We strayed. But today, the Terran has reminded us of our vow. He turned to Tila. Then to Jonah. You are seen, he said. A ripple passed through the chamber. The Galderan chancellor stood next, reluctant but thoughtful. Perhaps a temporary humanitarian corridor for the Solari colonies can be formed. The Threx diplomat added, under Terran supervision, limited. It wasn't perfect, but it was movement. Tila felt tears rise to her eyes. Not of sadness, but of release. Of finally being heard. After the session ended, Jonah didn't smile. He simply placed his hand gently on Tila's shoulder and nodded. "This is just the beginning," he said. "I know," she whispered as they walked out. Diplomats watch them differently now. Not with fear. Not with annoyance, but with respect. And far above, the Valorbound rotated slightly, its engines humming a soft song of old earth, of storms survived, of pain endured, and of voices raised when no one else would speak. And deep in the heart of the station, somewhere far beneath the surface, an ancient vault door clicked open for the first time in over a century. It carried no markings except for one, a human HANDPRINT and beside it the words Guardian Class 2 authorized. A soft hum filled the Solari skies. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't war. It was a sound older than both, a human ship breaking atmosphere. The edge of the mining colony known as Elor 7, families looked up through cracked domes and dust-streaked visors. They saw a shadow cover the orange sun, not with fear, but with awe. Children clutched one another's hands. Elders whispered words they hadn't used in decades. Earth has returned. The Valorbound didn't land with noise or pride. It hovered with quiet precision, and from its belly dropped smaller crafts, human relief skimmers carrying supplies, medics, engineers, and clean water units. Each craft bore no flag. No broadcast message. Just the symbol of a hand extended. Open, not closed. Tila stepped off the first relief vessel, wrapped in a thicker robe, a translator bead now upgraded with Terran tech. Jonah walked beside her. This time, the people bowed not just to him, but to her. "They thought we were abandoned," Tila whispered. "But they came." Jonah nodded. "Because someone reminded them what it means to be human." The moment was not without tension. From the rocky ridges above the colony, a mercenary patrol watched, one hired by a regional warlord who had claimed the abandoned colony for private mining. Their leader, a brutish cyborg named Zarkeen, growled as he saw the ships unload. "I don't care who sent them," he snarled, adjusting the rifle on his back. "They land without permission, we drive them out." His second-in-command hesitated. "Sir, that's a Terran ship, Guardian class." Zarkeen's eyes narrowed. "So what? They're old myths, rusted bones. Humanity gave up its claws 100 years ago." But down below, Jonah had already felt the shift. His eyes scanned the cliffs. His voice dropped. "We're being watched." Tila tensed. "Are we in danger?" "Not yet," Jonah said. "But they're about to test whether the stories were true." Then he tapped his comlink twice, quietly, like breathing. The cliffs erupted, not in fire, not in war. In warning. 3. Gleaming beams of focused light shot down from the Valorbound, slicing through the empty air just meters from the patrol. Not a single one hit a living soul. But every mercenary dropped their weapons. Zarkeen stared at the smoldering rock inches from his foot. "They missed," he growled, but his second-in-command stepped back. "No," she whispered, "they didn't." Moments later, a new sound filled the air, a deep rising tone like a long-held breath being released. From the sky above, a second Terran ship broke through the clouds. Sleeker, darker, older, but still alive. Its name pulsed across every communication channel on the colony. Guardian to Retribution. Tila watched with wide eyes. "There's more of you?" Jonah's voice was calm. "Guardians never come alone. We're scattered, hidden, waiting." "Waiting for what?" she asked. Jonah turned to her. "For someone to need us." Within minutes, the mercenaries fled. Not because of fire, not because of blood, but because they knew they were outmatched not in weapons, but in will. Back on the colony floor, children played in sunlight for the first time without masks. Engineers began repairing the oxygen lines. Food was shared without rationing. 1. Elder approached Tila, tears in his clouded eyes. Your voice reached stars we thought had gone dark, he whispered. We owe you everything. Tila shook her head. You owe me nothing. I just stood up. He reminded me how. Jonah watched it all from a quiet spot near the cliffs. His hand rested gently on the side of a rock on a marking he'd etched long ago during the first exploration of this world. A symbol left behind the Terran hand, but now, beside it, he etched a new one, the Solari bloom side by side, and across the stars, more old ships began to stir. Long-forgotten satellites realigned. Vaults opened. Files decrypted, because somewhere, in the deep silence of space, the Guardians were hearing something they had waited lifetimes to hear, a voice worth rising for. The stars over Elor 7 were clearer now, not because the dust storms had faded, or the broken domes had been fully replaced, but because for the first time in years, the people looked up with hope. The colony was alive again. Oxygen scrubbers hummed. With new strength. Food lines moved quickly and without guards. Children were taught in open spaces, not huddled in caves. And at the center of it all stood Tila, no longer the trembling girl who had once been mocked in the great chamber, but a young diplomat in her own right. Her voice was firm. Her steps were steady. Her presence reminded everyone that strength didn't always look like muscle or metal. Sometimes it looked like a girl who refused to be silent. She stood now on the rebuilt council platform of Elor 7, speaking to not just her people, but to a dozen species watching via broadcast across the quadrant. The Council of Zurith Prime had reluctantly approved a public hearing, one where other forgotten worlds could also speak. And so, the unheard came forward. The broken. The small. The overlooked. One after another. Ambassadors from dust-covered moons. Dying ships and starving settlements sent in their messages, not begging. Not pleading, but finally being seen. Tila finished her speech with simple words. When they laughed at me, they thought I would break, but a human stood up, and the room changed. Now it's our turn to stand for those who are still waiting. Her voice cracked only slightly at the end, but it didn't matter, because millions were listening. On the edge of the crowd stood Jonah. He didn't wear a uniform. He never had. Just his old coat, boots, and that faded lion wrapped around a star. But everyone who looked at him understood now. He was not just a human. He was a reminder of what humanity had once meant, what it could still mean. Beside him stood Commander Alira Dari, the captain of the second Guardian ship that had arrived days ago. She nodded to him, arms crossed, eyes sharp. You think she's ready? Alira asked. Jonah smiled faintly. She was always ready. The galaxy just needed to listen. They walked toward the edge of the platform where a small plaque had been installed. On it were the symbols of Earth and Solari, carved side by side. Alira looked up at the sky. More ships are coming, you know? The kind that won't like what we're doing here. Jonah didn't look worried. Then we'll remind them too. A quiet moment passed. Then, slowly, more humans began to arrive. Not soldiers, not conquerors. Guardians. From distant planets. From deep stations. From old, long-forgotten places. They came not with fleets, but with memories, with knowledge. With hands ready to rebuild. Tila watched them arrive, her heart heavy. And light at the same time. For the first time in a long while, the galaxy wasn't just looking at Earth with fear. It was looking with something closer to gratitude. Because this wasn't a rescue. It was a return. And it began not with a war, but with one human who refused to stay quiet. Far beyond, in the darkness between stars, something ancient stirred. A vast entity, neither alive nor dead, opened a long-closed channel. A robotic voice spoke into the void. Humanity has re-engaged. Protocol. Witness mode terminated. Resume active presence. A pause. Then, directive confirmed. Guardians. Of Earth status. Awaken.